Welcome to the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Paul Ryan. If you're a business owner, you're a CEO, you're a founder, you've started your own business and you employ people, then what I'm going to speak about in this podcast is for you. I have spoken with so many business owners, so many entrepreneurs and CEOs who founded businesses who are now doing 7 and 8 figures. So they have very successful businesses, yet they are miserable. They're now 5, 10, 15 years into their business, and they founded a business because they were enthusiastic. They wanted to be their own boss. They had a great idea, and they knew they could have independence and they could do really well if they just got on their own ship, if they started their own business. And yet somehow, 10 or 15 years later, it hasn't worked out exactly as planned. Now they have the successful business now, but they've lost something. Something is missing. And I see them as millionaires who have become miserable. But there's a common denominator. There's a common reason why these people are miserable. And that's largely because they have built a business and now they're operationally stuck in that business. I mean, is that you? Are you stuck in every moment, in every detail of your business? You have a really successful business. It's bringing in the revenue, but you have no freedom because you're stuck making every decision and the business fundamentally depends on you. Now, if you look at the trajectory of a business, that just makes a whole lot of sense because when you start a business, you need to do everything. You're employee number one, you're on your own, and you are all things to that business. And if you do that well, that business slowly grows and you accumulate customers. You then start bringing on team members, and slowly you go maybe from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business. And now you have a business that's turning maybe 3 to 5 million or something. And you're really successful. But you're finding that as the business grows, you are becoming snowed under because there's more opportunity. There's more going on. There's more people calling on you. There's your team calling on you. There's suppliers calling on you. There's your customers calling on you. And everything comes back to you. I know this is the problem because I went through it. I'm not some college professor who has studied business and studied marketing and can teach it all day long, but actually has never run the business. That's not the guy I am. I'm the guy who's done this for the past 30 years. And I know what it's like to be in that position because I was that guy who built a successful business, who felt like I had all the trappings of success, but was beginning to feel like I had nothing because I had no freedom. Literally, the business was all of my time, and when I wasn't in the business, it was in my head. And that's because I had become so trapped in day-to-day operations that I could never escape it. Have you ever played tennis with one of those automatic ball dispensing machines? So you're standing in the court and this machine is bouncing out balls for you to serve back at. Imagine if you really turn up the volume on that and those balls are just flying out so fast that no matter how quick you move, you cannot reach all the balls. I mean, you do that for a very short period of time and you're going to become completely exhausted and demotivated. Many years ago, that's how I ran my business. Everyone was coming to me all of the time. And I felt like that guy standing in the tennis court, literally trying to shoot balls, but I just couldn't get all of them. I was becoming worn out. Problem is, when that persists for a while, you become exhausted. You become demotivated. It will lead you to burnout. It almost took me to burnout. And you begin to despise, to loathe the business that you love. So if that resonates with you, then what I'm going to talk about is going to make a lot of sense. When I talk to business owners, and it's surprising how many of them are stuck in this position, and I ask them, what's the real problem? They almost always give me the same answer. The answer is people. They just can't find good people. I mean, they would love to have a team that they could delegate to so they didn't have to get involved in all the day-to-day nitty-gritty, but they just can't find quality people. Now, this is the story I hear from all business owners at this stage. So if you're there, know one thing, that all business owners go through this phase, and almost all business owners will come up with this story that they tell themselves that they just can't find good people. So if you're driving to work this morning and you're listening to this podcast, And when you walk into your office and you open the door and you look around and you see this team that are just not good enough, that are just not good enough to operate day to day without your involvement in every decision, know one thing: you freaking hired them. If they're sitting in your company, you freaking hired them. And if they're still there at the end of the day, it's because you haven't fired them. Now, that may sound cruel, but it's the truth. Everyone that sits on your team is there because you hire them. They didn't hire themselves. If they're low standard and they're not up to the job, they did not hire themselves. You hired them, and that makes you responsible. The second thing is, if you keep them in the business knowing that they're not up to standards, that's because you haven't fired them. They won't fire themselves. You have to fire them. So it's a question of hiring and firing. What are the standards of people you are hiring, and why aren't you firing people that were low standard? I know that sounds hard, but it's the truth. And until you accept that, nothing changes. I don't say this because I figured it out because I'm smarter than you. I'm not, but possibly I've just been in the game a lot longer than you. Possibly you're 20 or 30 years younger than me. I've been in the game. I've been in the trenches. I have done this. I have had a team, a whole business where almost all the people were good people, were nice people, but they were just that 20% subpar. And when they're 20% subpar, you just have to work so much harder. But there came a point where I learned from people who were further down the road from me, and I learned from mentors and teachers, and I realized that I had to accept responsibility for that, that I was setting a standard that was 70% of what I needed in the business. And the reality of it was, if I wanted a great team, if I ever wanted to free myself for the business, and if I wanted the business to grow, to become the business it could become, then I need to be recruiting people that were 100%, not at 70%. But I had to stop blaming the team. I had to stop blaming the fact that I couldn't get good people. And I had to accept the fact that I was responsible. I own this business. I run this business. I make decisions. And I am responsible for settling for people who weren't good enough. And when you have people that are just not good enough to do the work, then you continue to do what you've done from the very start of the business. You continue to do everything. And that is not good for you. But it's also just not good for your business, because your business needs more than you. It needs more skills. It needs more talents. And a business that's entirely dependent on you is either going to remain a very small business or it's going to be an unstable business. For me, the truth is nothing changed until I accepted responsibility, until I accepted the fact that I was accepting a low standard in my business. And then I realized that the difficult situation I was in, the degree of work I was doing, the stress I was feeling, the exhaustion, that was never going to go away until I raised my standards, until I stopped settling for people who just weren't up to scratch. So the first thing you have to do is you have to raise your own standards, because when you recruit someone that's substandard and you tell yourself, I just can't find good people, you're settling for people who are just not good enough, and you're perpetuating a problem. Now, of course, there are good people out there. I didn't say it was easy to find them. I just said, of course, there are good people out there, because when I speak to people who don't have to get operationally involved in every day-to-day decision, they have all learned this lesson. By the way, they've also all been at a point of their lives where they felt, I can't get good people good enough to run my business. And at some stage, they all realized that they would either stay in that mindset or they would create a new belief, or they would begin to realize, no, I need to wait until I find people who are good enough to recruit into my business. So that's the first thing. You have to start recruiting people at a much higher level. And you're going to go, oh, but I can't afford to. The truth of it is, you can't afford not to. You are stuck at a point that's not good for you and not good for your business. And if you don't up your game, then the business can never up its game, and you can never find the freedom that is available to you if you run your business properly. If you want a much higher quality of person, a much higher grade person, you're going to have to be willing to pay for a much higher grade person. And so if you're currently pitching at someone that 70% of the 100% you need, maybe you're going to have to pay 20%, 30% more than you're paying at the moment. And you're thinking, but I can't afford to do that. But slow down. When you have poor quality people, they are delivering poor quality results for your business. That's why you can't afford to pay them. If you up the game of the quality of the people you're employing in your business and you have a little bit of patience, those people will start paying for themselves. In my 30 years in business, I have done both. I've employed low-grade people and I've gotten low-grade results. And then when I woke up to this, I started paying much higher quality of people. But I was recruiting a much higher standard of people and I demanded a lot more from those people. But you know what? Those people delivered a lot more. Why? Because they're higher caliber people, because that is in their nature to deliver at a much higher level. This doesn't mean that you won't make recruiting mistakes. Of course you will, but you've got to be willing to correct those mistakes quickly, and you've got to be willing to remove people from your team who don't set the standards. When I came to this realization, when I had this aha moment and I woke up and I realized that I was just really needed to raise the standards of my business, I had to stand up in front of my whole team and tell them that the standard of performance and the standard of behavior, because there was some poor behavior in the company as well, that I was accepting was over, that I was wrong to ever accept that level of behavior in the company. I acknowledged that we had a lot of people in the company who were really good, but with some people who weren't just up to scratch, and those people were going to have to make a choice. They were going to have to get up to scratch. Honestly, I knew some of them couldn't, but I was giving them the opportunity. But I openly said to people, we are raising the standard of performance, we're raising the standard of behavior, and I am raising the standard of what I'm accepting in the company. But that comes back to me hiring the right people, back to me being willing to pay for good people. But you know, good people attract good people. So you also have to be willing to create a culture in your business, a culture of high performance, a culture of behavior where everyone treats each other respectfully, treats each other well, and you accept nothing less. And also a culture of high reward. Something I realized a long time ago is nobody works for me. Nobody gets out of the bed in the morning and comes into my business to make me rich. Nobody does. Everyone comes in to look after their own situation, to do well for themselves, do well in their career, to provide for their family, to create the life they want to create. So you have to create an environment where those people can do well, where they can be treated well on the job, where they can progress in their career, where they can earn a decent income, and they probably have some sort of system where they can earn more if the company does well. So it's your responsibility as the owner of the business to create an environment that will attract good people. Because once you start attracting good people, you will begin to raise the standard. Low quality people or people who are poor performers, they just won't fit in the business anymore. And you completely change the nature of the people in your business. I was speaking to an owner recently who told me they had gotten a new manager for the business to oversee the day-to-day operations. And he said to me the following. He said, he's a young guy, but he's smart, doesn't have much experience in management, but I'm going to send him on a management training course. And I'm thinking, are you crazy? You can't take someone in to manage your business who doesn't have the experience to manage your business. You need to be raising that up. Probably someone with 10 years more experience who's maybe going to cost you 50% more than that person. But if you bring in someone that doesn't have the experience to run your business, what result would you expect? If you were playing in a golf tournament on the weekend or a tennis tournament or something, and you were a really serious tennis or golf player, and you were putting a team into this event and you really wanted to do well, and I said, hey, I don't play much tennis, but I'd love to play in your team on Saturday. How would you feel about that? And you'd go, well, you don't play much tennis? No, but I can learn. I'm a quick learner. Because a lot of people say that I'm a quick learner. You would go, no. This is a competition that we're really serious about winning. Come back to me in 5 years. You wouldn't take me onto your team, onto your golf team, onto your tennis team. You just wouldn't do it because you know I can't learn that quick. It comes from years and years of experience. And yet people recruit people into their business on the basis of we'll teach them. By the way, I'm all into bringing people and nurturing them. But if you're taking someone into your business and they don't have the experience, they don't have a proven track record, then you have to be willing to handhold those people, probably for a couple of years until they get their experience. So never expect someone who's at a lower level. They may have potential, but from an experience point of view and from a current skill level, never expect them to do a job that really you need someone at a much higher caliber to do. It comes down to three things. You have to change the culture in your business, and that starts with you. You have to change the culture where the standard of what we accept in the business is up here, and the caliber of people we expect in the business is up here. Now, you have to set that standard. You have to demand that standard, but that requires of you only to recruit people who are of that standard and only to keep people in the business that are of that standard. So the second thing is you have to set the standard that you're willing to tolerate, and you just can't tolerate anything below that standard. You have to be willing to remove people from your business, no matter how long they're there. You have to be willing to remove people from your business who don't meet that standard. So if you recruit at a very high standard, and if you only tolerate people at a very high standard, well, then you begin to change the culture in your team to a high-performing culture. A lot of people try to create high-performance teams, but they haven't put high-performing people in those teams. When you recruit high-performing people, then you have very little to do to deliver a high-performance team. If you haven't got a high-performance team, it's probably just because the caliber of people you have in that team are just not up to scratch. But most business owners I know spend too much time complaining about the caliber of their people instead of looking in the mirror, looking at themselves straight in the eye and go, I hired these people and I tolerate them in my business. So that has to change if your team is going to change. Finally, you have to create an environment in the business that has these people wanting to stay. As I've said, nobody works for you. Everybody works for themselves. So create an environment in your business where your people are well rewarded. They're acknowledged, but they feel like they're part of it. They feel like if the business performs well, they get out of bed in the morning and they enthusiastically come in to run your business, not because it's your business, but because it's the opportunity for them to create the best lives for themselves. And that means you have to be in a win-win. It can't be all you winning. It has to be a win-win. So you need to raise the caliber of your people, but those people need to be sharing in the wins of your business. They need to feel like it's their business. Now you're beginning to create a team. Now you're beginning to create a team that will run your business instead of you having to do it. You will still need to lead your business, but you will no longer need to be operationally involved in your business. Now, this is what works. I know it works because I've done it and implemented it myself, and because I've spoken to many, many business owners who followed this transition and made it work within their business and begun to free up their time. And then you can free up that time for whatever you want, for focusing on the really important things in your business, for focusing on areas of development and growth in your business, instead of being stuck in low-grade, day-to-day stuff that is burning you out and is not serving you of the business. But fundamentally, it all starts with you. The thing I've learned most about businesses and business owners is that a business cannot grow beyond the leader, and the leader is you. So if you're not growing, if you're not accepting 100% responsibility for creating the business you want, then how can you expect your business to grow beyond the vision you have? It simply won't. Now, what I'm sharing with you here today is simple. These are very simple principles, but they're also very hard to implement. I have a lot of experience implementing this myself and talking with other people going through the process. In my experience, if you're starting at a point with a low caliber team and you want to transition to a high caliber team that can take you out of operations in the business, probably you're looking at a 2-year cycle. I mean, I'm just being realistic. I don't have a magic wand here. You'll need to slowly change your team. You'll need to bring new people in, new high caliber people in. But when you bring new people in, you've got to be with them for a while. You've got to be guiding them. You've got to be making sure that they are the people that their CV said they were. You've got to just work with these people. So that will take probably a couple of years, but it will be so well spent. And gradually you will be freeing yourself from the business. Gradually you will be building a much better business. Gradually you will be building a business that you can fall back and love it. And it will be a business that is growing and thriving. We all as business owners have to be continuously learning, continuously growing in ourselves. And we have to, before we do anything, we have to be willing to look in the mirror and see how we need to be better, how we need to raise out our standards, and then we bring that into the business. So as I say, the principles of this are very simple. I've seen them work so many times, but they're hard. They take a lot of honesty, and it takes a lot of personal courage for a leader to stand up and say, I've been doing this wrong. I let the standard slip, and I'm responsible for shifting that and changing it. But once you have the courage to do that, and once you step up and deliver on that, the transformation of your business will be enormous. And I wish you the very, very best with it. This is the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Paul Ryan. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. It all helps the show. Until next time, take care.